The alien girl was hiding in my cabin. Part 1. Olivia Mason pushed open the wooden door of her cabin. The smell hit her first. Something was different. The cabin felt lived in, even though she had been away for a week taking wildlife photos in the deep woods of Montana. She placed her heavy camera bag on the floor and looked around with careful eyes. Nothing seemed moved, but something felt wrong. Olivia walked to her small kitchen and opened the fridge. The milk was lower than she remembered. The bread bag was open. She was sure she had closed it before leaving. Maybe I'm just tired, she thought. Her mind could be playing tricks after days alone in the wilderness, taking pictures of bears and wolves. Olivia unpacked her gear and took a long, hot shower, washing away the dirt and sweat from her hiking. She changed into clean clothes and made a simple dinner from canned soup and the suspicious bread. It tasted fine. As night fell outside her windows, Olivia sat by the fireplace looking through the photos she had taken. The bears looked magnificent in the morning light. The wolves had been harder to find, but she had managed to capture a mother and cubs from a safe distance. The wind picked up outside, making the cabin creak. Olivia yawned and decided it was time for bed. She would drive to town tomorrow to sell some of her photos to the local magazine and buy fresh supplies. Sleep came fast, but it did not stay. Somewhere in the dark hours, Olivia woke with a start. Her heart raced as she lay still listening. The cabin was quiet, too quiet. No wind, no animals outside. Just a strange feeling that she was not alone. Slowly, she slid out of bed. The wooden floor was cold against her bare feet. She grabbed her flashlight but did not turn it on yet. Instead, she moved carefully to her bedroom door and listened again. A soft sound came from the main room. Something moving. Something breathing. Olivia took a deep breath and stepped into the hallway. She could see a faint glow coming from around the corner to the living room. It was not firelight. It was something else, something with a blue tint. With her heart pounding in her chest, Olivia moved forward one step at a time until she could see into the living room. There by the cold fireplace, crouched a figure. Olivia flipped on her flashlight. The beam caught a woman with long silver hair. Her skin was pale, almost glowing. The woman spun around her eyes, reflecting the light like a wild animal. They were not normal eyes. They were large and slanted upward with pupils that seemed to change shape as Olivia watched. But most shocking were her ears. They came to delicate points like something from a fantasy book. The strange woman hissed and covered her eyes from the light. Olivia saw blood on the woman's arm. A deep cut ran from elbow to wrist. It was not bleeding now, but looked fresh, maybe a day old. "Who are you?" Olivia asked, trying to keep her voice steady. The woman spoke, but the words made no sense. The language was like nothing Olivia had ever heard. It sounded like singing and whispering mixed together. Olivia lowered the flashlight so it wasn't directly in the woman's eyes. "I won't hurt you," she said. "Are you lost? Do you need help?" The strange woman seemed to understand the tone. If not the words, she relaxed slightly but kept her distance. Her clothes were odd, like a jumpsuit made of material that seemed to shift colors in the light, from gray to blue to green and back. "Going to call for help?" Olivia said slowly. She moved toward the satellite phone on the table by the window. The cabin was too remote for cell service. This was her only link to the outside world. The woman suddenly became agitated. She jumped up and spoke rapidly in her strange language. Her hands moved in urgent gestures, clearly trying to communicate something important. She pointed at the phone, then made a slashing motion across her throat. "No phone?" Olivia asked, confused. The woman nodded vigorously. "No phone," she repeated. The first English words she had spoken. The accent was strange but understandable. "Danger," she added, pointing outside. "They come." "Who?" Olivia asked. "Who is coming?" Instead of answering, the woman reached into a pouch at her waist and pulled out what looked like a small lizard. It was dark red with tiny scales that glittered in the flashlight beam. As Olivia watched in shock, the little creature unfurled wings like a bat. They were thin and leathery but strong. The creature looked at Olivia with intelligent eyes, deep gold with black slits down the middle. Before Olivia could back away, the small dragon opened its mouth. A jet of blue flame shot out, hitting the satellite phone. The plastic melted instantly. The flame was hotter than any fire Olivia had ever seen. She dropped the flashlight and jumped back. The dragon stopped its fire, and the woman caught the creature, holding it close to her chest. She looked at Olivia with pleading eyes. "Hide me," she said in broken English. "Hunt me. They hunt me." Olivia stood frozen, unable to process what she had just seen. The small dragon watched her from the woman's arms. Its intelligent eyes seemed to evaluate her. "Who are you?" Olivia asked again. The woman touched her own chest. "Lyra," she said. Then she pointed to the dragon. Ember. Olivia nodded slowly, taking a step forward. Are you not from Earth?" Lyra tilted her head, confused by the question. "This planet?" Olivia tried again, pointing down at the floor. "Are you from somewhere else?" She pointed up at the ceiling. Understanding dawned. In Lyra's strange eyes, she nodded. "Home gone," she said, her face filled with sadness. "Destroyed." A million questions raced through Olivia's mind, but one thing was clear. This woman, this alien, was terrified and injured, and something or someone was hunting her. Olivia made a decision that would change everything. "I will help you," she said slowly, making sure Lyra understood. She pointed to the cut on Lyra's arm. "First we fix that." The next morning, Olivia woke wondering if it had all been a dream. But Lyra was still there, sitting by the window, watching the forest with alert eyes. The small dragon Ember was curled on her lap, sleeping, his scales rising and falling with each breath. Olivia made breakfast: simple eggs and toast. Lyra watched with fascination. As Olivia cooked, she sniffed the food carefully before eating. But once she tasted it, she ate quickly, like someone who had gone hungry for too long. They tried to communicate through drawings and gestures. Lyra was a quick learner, picking up simple English words fast. She seemed especially interested in maps Olivia had of the surrounding wilderness. Olivia showed Lyra her camera and the pictures of animals. Lyra seemed amazed by the technology, though Olivia wondered how that could be when the Yao woman had a literal dragon and came from another world. Over the next few days, they developed a routine. Lyra stayed hidden in the cabin, while Olivia went outside to chop wood and check the perimeter for any signs of these hunters. Lyra feared Ember grew slightly larger each day. Now the size of a house cat, the dragon never strayed far from Lyra. At night they sat by the fire and tried to learn more about each other. Lyra drew pictures of her world, strange plants and buildings unlike anything on Earth. She drew terrible machines and creatures that looked like shadows with teeth. When she drew these, her hand shook and tears fell from her eyes. Olivia began to understand that Lyra was a refugee. The last of her kind, perhaps. Running from something that had destroyed her home, and somehow her path had led her to this remote cabin in the Montana wilderness. What Olivia didn't know was how little time they had left. The hunters were already closing in, and the reason Lyra was hiding would soon become terrifyingly clear. A week passed since Olivia found Lyra hiding in her cabin. The strange woman with pointed ears and her growing dragon had become part of her daily life. Olivia still found it hard to believe, but the evidence was right in front of her eyes. Ember, now the size of a large dog, could fly around the cabin room to room. His fire breath had become stronger too. He could light the fireplace with one quick puff. Lyra's English improved each day. She learned fast, picking up words and phrases from Olivia. They still used drawings for complex ideas, but basic communication became easier. "Need supplies," Olivia said one morning. Looking at her nearly empty pantry, she pointed to the kitchen shelves. "Food low." Lyra nodded, but her eyes showed worry. "Go town. Dangerous," she said. Olivia shook her head. "They don't know about you," she assured Lyra. "I go to town all the time. Normal for me." Lyra seemed unconvinced. Her slender fingers played nervously with a strand of her silver hair. She looked at Ember, who was curled up on the rug by the fireplace. The dragon raised his head as if sensing the conversation was about him. Must be careful. Lyra finally said, "They have ways to track." She tapped her arm where the cut had been. The wound had healed remarkably, fast leaving only a thin silver line. Olivia promised to be quick. Just a trip to the general store for food and maybe the hardware store for some extra locks for the doors and windows. She changed into clean clothes and grabbed her truck keys. Lyra pressed something into Olivia's hand. It looked like a smooth stone with swirls of blue and green inside danger stone. "Warn you," she explained. "If Glow come back fast." Olivia slipped the stone into her pocket, thanking Lyra. She drove down the dirt road that connected her cabin to the main highway. The trip to town took 30 minutes winding through forest and hills. Mason Creek was a small town mostly serving tourists and locals who lived off the grid, like Olivia. The general store doubled as the post office and local gossip hub. Olivia parked her truck and went inside, greeting Betty, the owner, with a smile. Betty looked relieved to see Olivia alive and well. "Thought you might have been eaten by bears," she joked, as Olivia filled a basket with canned goods, pasta, rice, and coffee. Olivia laughed. "Been busy with a photography project," she lied easily. "Not many bears this season, though." As she shopped, Olivia noticed a group of men enter the store. They wore casual clothes, hiking boots, and jackets that looked too new and expensive for local hunters. Their haircuts were too neat, their posture too alert. They reminded Olivia of the military personnel she had photographed for a magazine once. One of the men approached Betty at the counter. He showed her something that looked like a badge. Olivia couldn't hear the conversation, but she saw Betty point in the direction of the forest, where many cabins, including Olivia's, were located. Olivia kept her head down, focusing on selecting apples and oranges from the produce section. She felt the stone in her pocket growing warm. Was that a sign of danger? She wasn't sure, but she didn't want to find out the hard way. She paid for her groceries, quickly avoiding eye contact with the strangers. As she loaded the bags into her truck, she noticed black SUVs parked down the street. They had no markings, but the antennas suggested government vehicles. The stone in her pocket was definitely warmer now. Olivia drove away from town, trying to maintain a normal speed, fighting the urge to floor the gas pedal. She took a longer route home, using old logging roads just in case someone followed her. When she finally reached her cabin, Lyra was packing frantically. She had found an old backpack of Olivia's and was filling it with food, water bottles, and warm clothes. Ember watched from the table, his tail swishing back and forth agitatedly. "They found me." Lyra set her eyes wide with fear. "Stone warned you?" Olivia nodded. "Men in town asking questions. They looked military or government." Lyra's face paled. "They not government," she said. "They look like humans but serve others, the masters." She spat the last word, like it tasted bad. "What do they want?" Olivia asked, helping Lyra pack the essentials. Lyra pointed to Ember. The small dragon huffed a cloud of smoke. "They want him." "Want what inside him?" "Inside." Olivia didn't understand. Lyra tapped her head. "Knowledge template weapon." She struggled with the complex concept. "We must go." "Hide deeper." Olivia thought quickly. She knew these mountains better than most people. She had spent years hiking and photographing the wilderness. She knew places that weren't on any map. Old mining trails, abandoned cabins used by prohibition smugglers decades ago. "I know where to go," she said, grabbing her own backpack. She packed her camera, extra batteries, warm clothes, a first aid kit, and a hunting knife. Her father had taught her survival skills before he passed away. She never thought she'd need them for anything more than an extended photography trip. The sun was setting by the time they were ready to leave. Olivia led Lyra out the back of the cabin into the dense forest. They would travel at night to avoid being spotted. Ember flew above them, his red scales blending with the darkening sky. They hiked for hours, using only the moonlight to guide them. Olivia leading the way through familiar trails, then veering off into unmarked wilderness. Lyra moved silently, her feet barely making a sound on the forest floor. She seemed more at home in the woods than Olivia, despite being from another world. Near midnight, they reached a small stream. Olivia filled their water bottles, while Lyra sat on a rock. Ember landed beside her, nuzzling her hand. "How did you come to Earth?" Olivia asked as they rested. Lyra looked up at the stars. "Ship crashed," she said, pointing to the night sky emergency pod. "Only me and Ember survive." She drew in the dirt with a stick, showing a large ship and a small pod separating from it. "Others follow. Hunt me, hunt all my kind." Olivia studied Lyra's face in the moonlight. The alien woman looked exhausted but determined. Something about her drew Olivia in. She felt protective of Lyra and curious about her world. "Why did you choose my cabin?" Olivia asked. Lyra smiled faintly. "Remote safe?" she explained. "Watched you many days before. Know you kind person." She pointed to Olivia's camera. "You see beauty. You understand." A twig snapped in the distance. Ember growled low in his throat. His scales bristled and began to glow slightly. "Go," Lyra whispered urgently, grabbing their packs. They moved quickly, following the stream to mask their tracks. The forest grew denser as they climbed higher into the mountains. Olivia led them to an outcropping of rocks that formed a natural shelter. They huddled together as rain began to fall. Ember curled around them, his body giving off surprising warmth. Olivia felt the absurdity of the situation hit her. She was running through the woods in the middle of the night with an alien and a dragon hiding from mysterious hunters. Yet something felt right about it. She had always been a loner, preferring the company of wild animals to people. Her photography kept her at a distance, observing life rather than participating. But with Lyra, she felt connected to something bigger than herself. As dawn broke, they continued their journey, heading toward an old mining complex Olivia knew about. It was abandoned decades ago after the gold ran out. Local kids told stories about it being haunted, which kept most people away. It was the perfect hiding place. The climb was difficult, especially as the rain continued. Lyra showed incredible endurance, moving over rough terrain with grace. Her eyes seemed to adjust to the darkness better than Olivia's. Ember scouted ahead, sometimes disappearing for long periods, before returning to circle above them. By midday, they reached a ridge that overlooked a valley. The mining complex was visible in the distance, weathered buildings nestled against the mountainside. Olivia passed her binoculars to Lyra, who studied the area carefully. "Safe?" she asked. "For now," Olivia replied. "We can rest there, figure out next steps." As they prepared to descend into the valley, Lyra suddenly grabbed Olivia's arm, her eyes wide with fear. Ember landed between them, his wings spread protectively. "They come," Lyra whispered. Olivia looked through her binoculars again. This time she saw them, black vehicles moving along the old mining. Roadmen in tactical gear spreading out into search formations. They had found them somehow, despite all their precautions. How, Olivia asked in disbelief. How did they find us so quickly? Lyra looked at Ember with sadness. He grows stronger. His energy, they can track. She stroked the dragon's head gently. Not your fault, little one. Olivia thought quickly. There was another way down the mountain, a steep trail that locals called Suicide Pass. It was dangerous, but it might be their only chance. This way, she said, leading them away from the ridge. We can still make it. They moved faster now, fear giving them new energy. The trail narrowed and steepened. Loose rocks made footing treacherous. Ember flew close, providing light when needed behind them. Olivia heard the sound of engines and voices. They were being pursued. The hunters had picked up their trail. As night fell again, they reached the mining complex, exhausted and cold. The old buildings loomed like ghosts in the darkness. Olivia led them to the main structure, the old processing plant. Its thick walls and multiple levels would provide hiding places and escape routes. Inside, they found dusty machinery and abandoned tools. Lyra examined everything with curious eyes. Ember sniffed at corners and crevices, seeming to search for something. We should be safe for tonight, Olivia said, dropping her pack. I doubt they'll try to follow in the dark. Lyra nodded, but her expression remained worried. They never stop, she said softly. Never. Give up until they have what they want. What exactly do they want? Olivia asked, sitting on an old crate. Lyra sighed deeply, looking at Ember, who had curled up nearby. The answer was complex, but Olivia needed. The alien girl was hiding in my cabin. Part 3 dawn broke over the abandoned mining complex, painting the rusted metal structures with golden light. Olivia woke with a start, her neck stiff from sleeping against the wall. She looked around the dusty room for Lyra, but the alien woman wasn't there. Ember was also missing. Panic gripped Olivia as she jumped to her feet. Had they left her? Had they been captured? She rushed to the broken window and scanned the area outside. No sign of black vehicles or armed men. That was good, at least. A soft sound from above caught her attention. Olivia climbed the metal stairs to the second level of the building. There she found Lyra standing in a patch of sunlight that streamed through a hole in the roof. Her silver hair glowed in the light. Her hands were raised, palms up, and her eyes were closed round her feet. Plants were growing, impossible plants with blue and purple leaves that seemed to pulse with inner light. They pushed up through cracks in the concrete floor, spreading in a circle around Lyra. The sight left Olivia speechless. Ember perched on a beam overhead, watching the process. His body had changed again overnight. Now the size of a large wolf, his scales had hardened into what looked like armor plates. His wings were massive, folding along his back when not in use. Lyra opened her eyes and smiled at Olivia. "Food," she said, gesturing to the plants. She bent down and plucked several leaves, placing them in a small pile. "How you say? Breakfast." Olivia approached cautiously. "Is it safe for humans?" she asked. Lyra nodded. "Good for you. Make strong." She took a leaf and ate it to demonstrate. Olivia picked up a leaf. It felt like velvet between her fingers. She took a small bite. The taste was surprising, like honey and mint with something else she couldn't identify. Energy seemed to flow through her body as she chewed. She felt more awake, more alert. "How did you do this?" she asked, gesturing to the plants. Lyra placed her hand on the ground. "Connection," she explained. "All worlds connected, all life." She pointed to herself. "Part of my gifts. Life shaping as they ate the strange plants." Olivia tried to process everything she had seen in the past week. Her normal life seemed very far away now. The alien woman before her could grow plants from bare concrete. Her pet dragon was rapidly growing in size and power, and somewhere out there people were hunting them with deadly purpose. "We need to keep moving," Olivia said. "The hunters will search this area. When daylight comes." Lyra nodded in agreement. She stood and brushed dirt from her clothing, which Olivia noticed had adapted to look more like earth clothing, jeans and a simple shirt, though the material still shimmered strangely in the light show. "Me map," Lyra requested. Olivia pulled out her worn trail map of the mountain range they were here. She pointed in the mining complex. "The nearest town is 30 miles that way, but we should avoid people." She traced her finger along the ridgeline. "This leads deeper into the wilderness. The national forest stretches for hundreds of miles." Lyra studied the map, her strange eyes taking in every detail. She placed her finger on a spot about 20 miles away. "Mountains meet sky," she said. There Olivia looked, where she was pointing. It was one of the highest peaks in the range, nearly inaccessible except to serious climbers. "Why there?" she asked. Lyra glanced at Ember, who was now watching them intently. "Needs height." She explained, "Power to open way," to where Olivia wondered, but before she could ask, a low growl came from Ember. His head was turned toward the window, his scales bristling. Lyra tensed. "Listen," she whispered. Olivia strained her ears. Then she heard it. Engines. The rumble of vehicles. Approaching voices carried on the morning air. "They found us." Olivia hissed, grabbing her backpack. "We need to go now." They moved quickly, gathering their few belongings. Ember flew out through the roof to scout Olivia, led Lyra to the back of the building, where a narrow trail wound up the mountainside away from the approaching vehicles. They had barely made it into the tree line when the first black SUVs pulled into the mining yard. Men in tactical gear poured out, weapons ready. They moved with military precision surrounding the main building. Olivia and Lyra crouched behind large boulders watching. Some of the men carried strange devices that looked like satellite dishes. They swept them back and forth as if searching for signals. One of the men called out. He pointed to the spot where Lyra's plant still grew. The others gathered around examining the alien flora. One man touched his ear as if receiving instructions through an earpiece. He nodded, then gave orders to the others. They know we're close, Olivia whispered. We need to move. They retreated deeper into the forest, moving as quietly as possible. Ember rejoined them, flying low between the trees. His larger size made it harder for him to maneuver, but he moved with surprising grace. For hours they hiked upward, always climbing higher into the mountains. The air grew thinner, the terrain more rugged. Lyra seemed unbothered by the elevation, but Olivia found herself breathing harder, her legs burning with exertion. By midday, they reached a small plateau with a view of the valley below. They could see the mining complex now swarming with activity. More vehicles had arrived, teams of men spread out in search patterns. The hunters were organizing a full sweep of the area. Olivia shared the last of her trail mix with Lyra as they rested. We need to find water, she said. Their supplies were running low. Lyra closed her eyes for a moment. Then she pointed to a cluster of rocks about 100 yards away. Water there, she said confidently. How? Do you know? Olivia asked. Lyra smiled. Feel it, she said. Life calls to life. Sure enough, they found a small spring bubbling from between the rocks. The water was clear and cold. Olivia filled their bottles while Lyra examined plants growing nearby. She selected certain leaves and berries, adding them to a small pouch as they prepared to continue their journey. Ember suddenly stiffened. His head turned sharply to the east. He growled a sound that raised the hair on Olivia's arms. Not hunters, Lyra whispered. Something else. Before Olivia could ask what she meant, Ember launched himself into the air, flying toward whatever had caught his attention. Lyra followed immediately, running across the plateau with inhuman speed. Olivia had no choice but to chase after them. They reached a small clearing where Ember had landed. The dragon stood protectively over something on the ground. His wings spread wide. Lyra knelt beside him, making soft, clicking sounds that seemed to calm the agitated dragon. Olivia approached. Cautiously, what is it? She asked. Lyra moved aside to reveal a large bird, a golden eagle. Its wing was clearly broken and blood matted its feathers. Ember made a soft, trilling sound as he looked at the injured creature. Help her, Lyra said, looking at Olivia. Your hand's smaller. Olivia had helped injured animals before. She knelt beside the eagle, which watched her with fierce yellow eyes. Easy now, she murmured. I'm not going to hurt you. The eagle made no move to strike as Olivia carefully examined it. The wing was definitely broken, but it seemed recent. The bird was otherwise healthy. We need to set the wing. Olivia said, I can make a splint. Lyra nodded. She placed her hand near the eagle, not quite touching it. The bird grew calmer. Olivia used sticks and strips of cloth from her pack to create a simple splint for the broken wing. All the while, Ember watched with intense interest. When they finished, Lyra placed her hand directly on the eagle. Her fingers began to glow with soft blue light. The eagle remained perfectly still as the light spread over its wing. The broken bone visibly shifted, realigning itself. The eagle blinked, but showed no sign of pain. Olivia watched in amazement as the healing continued. The bones knit together, the wounds closed. Feathers straightened and regained their golden sheen. Within minutes, the eagle looked completely healed. Lyra removed the splint. The eagle tested its wing, stretching it fully. It looked at Lyra with what seemed like gratitude. Then, with powerful beats of its wings, it launched into the sky, circling once above them. Before flying away, you healed it, Olivia said in wonder. Lyra nodded, looking tired from the effort. Life energy, she explained. All connected. She gestured between herself, Olivia, and the sky where the eagle had disappeared. Same energy, different forms. Ember nudged Lyra gently. She stroked his head. The dragon had grown even larger during the day. His shoulders now level with Olivia's waist. His wings, when fully extended, must have spanned 15 feet. As they watched the eagle disappear into the distance, a new sound reached them. Helicopters. The rhythmic thump of rotors echoed between the mountains. The hunters had escalated their search. "We need cover," Olivia said, looking around frantically. The plateau offered little protection. They were too exposed. Lyra looked at Ember. They exchanged what seemed like a silent communication. Then Lyra turned to Olivia. "Trust me," she said. She held out her hand. Olivia hesitated, only briefly before taking it. Lyra's skin felt warmer than human normal, almost feverish. Lyra placed her other hand on Ember's head. The dragon lowered himself to the ground. "Cover," she instructed. Olivia crouched beside the dragon. Lyra did the same. Then Ember extended his wings, wrapping them around the two women like a tent. His scales began to shift color, changing from deep red to green to gray to brown, blending perfectly with the surrounding rocks and sparse vegetation. From above, they would look like nothing more than a boulder. The helicopter grew closer. Its shadow passed over them, but Ember remained perfectly still, his wings forming an impenetrable shield around them. Olivia could hear men shouting orders, the sound of boots, on Rock's team sweeping the area. Inside their hiding place, Lyra gripped Olivia's hand tightly. Her eyes were closed in concentration. Olivia felt something strange, a tingling sensation that... Night fell over the mountains, bringing a chill wind and clouds that hid the stars. Olivia, Lyra, and Ember had found shelter in a shallow cave halfway up the mountainside. They had been moving constantly since their narrow escape that morning, always climbing higher, always watching for pursuers. Olivia built a small fire deep in the cave where the light wouldn't be visible from outside. Her hands shook, partly from cold, partly from fear. The visions Lyra had shared with her kept playing in her mind. The destruction of an entire civilization. The same fate possibly awaiting Earth. Lyra sat cross-legged nearby, her eyes reflecting the firelight. She looked different tonight. Her skin seemed to glow faintly from within, her ears more prominently, pointed, her eyes larger and more alien. The pretense of looking human was fading as her strength grew in the mountains away from civilization. Ember curled around them both, his massive body providing additional warmth. The dragon was now the size of a horse. His wings, when folded still, couldn't hide his true nature. His eyes contained depths Olivia hadn't noticed before, like looking into pools of molten gold with galaxies swirling inside. "You said Ember is a key," Olivia said, breaking the silence. "A weapon." "What did you mean?" Lyra ran her hand along Ember's scales, which rippled with color at her touch. "Not weapon," she clarified. "Template. For weapon." Olivia frowned, not understanding. Lyra tried again. "Knowledge inside," she said, tapping her own head, then Ember's. "My people put knowledge in Ember DNA memory." She struggled with the complex concept. "You mean genetic information?" Olivia suggested. "Your people stored information in his genetic code." Lyra nodded enthusiastically. "Yes, genetic." She seemed pleased with the word. All dragons carry small knowledge, Ember special carries all knowledge. The idea was astonishing. Olivia looked at Ember with new eyes. The dragon met her gaze knowingly. He was not just an animal, he was a living database, a genetic library containing the collected wisdom of an advanced civilization. "Why put it in a living creature?" Olivia asked. "Why not a computer or some other technology?" Lyra smiled sadly. "Masters control technology." She explained. "Hack systems find data, can't. Hack life. Can't read without key." She touched her own chest. "Key inside me." Dragon bond. So the Masters. These aliens who destroyed your world, they want Ember because he contains information. Olivia said, trying to understand. And the humans working with them are helping to track you down. Lyra nodded. They promise humans power, she said. Lie, always lie. Give small technology. Take everything later. She made a sweeping gesture. Earth empty. Olivia shuddered. She believed Lyra. The fear in the alien woman's eyes when she spoke of the Masters was too real to be fabricated, and Olivia had seen the visions of destruction herself through their mental connection. What information does Ember carry? She asked. What knowledge is so important? Lyra was quiet, for a long moment staring into the fire. When she finally spoke, her voice was different, deeper, more resonant. How you say history of evolution, she said. Our world and others. How life change, grow, adapt. She looked directly at Olivia, and how to end it. The words hung in the air between them. Olivia felt cold despite the fire and Ember's warmth. A template for weapons that could end life. Not just kill individuals, but end life itself. You brought the key to a doomsday weapon to Earth, Olivia whispered. Lyra shook her head fiercely. Not weapon way to fight Masters, she insisted. They use life against life. Control twist. Turn worlds against selves. She pointed to Ember. He carries cure, carries way to stop. Hope returned to Olivia. So Ember contains information that could help defeat these Masters. These invaders. Yes, Lyra confirmed. But need time. Need place. Need safety. She pointed upward to the peak above them. Mountaintop, tomorrow, reach top. Why the mountaintop? Olivia asked. Lyra spread her hands. Power, she said. Energy lines. She traced patterns in the air. Ley lines humans call Earth power. She pointed to Ember. He connect. Use power. Open way. Open way to where Olivia pressed. Home to. Lyra said. Second home. Hidden world. Sanctuary. She looked sad. People prepare long time, no Masters coming, hide seeds of civilization. Olivia tried to process everything Lyra was telling her. There was another world. A sanctuary world where Lyra's people had hidden, and Ember somehow had the ability to open a portal to this world, but only from a place of power, a place where Earth's natural energy was strong. The mountain peak. That's why you've been running, Olivia said. You're trying to reach the peak. So Ember can open a portal and escape with the knowledge he carries. Keep it safe from the Masters. Lyra nodded. Relief showed on her face that Olivia understood. Yes, she confirmed. Escape, warn others. Prepare, fight. Olivia felt a mix of emotions. The fate of Earth might depend on getting Lyra and Ember safely to the mountain peak. But then what would Earth be left defenseless when they departed? Would the Masters still come looking for what they had lost? What about Earth? Olivia asked. What happens after you go? Lyra's expression grew troubled. Not know, she admitted. Masters might leave. Might stay. She looked at Ember. Hope. He enough ready? What do you mean? Ready enough? Olivia asked. Lyra pointed to Ember. Still young, she explained. Still growing. Need full size, full power for travel between worlds. For true power. She spread her arms wide to indicate much larger. Olivia looked at Ember, who was already enormous. How big will he get? She asked with some alarm. Lyra smiled for the first time that night. Much bigger, she said. Much, much bigger. They fell silent, each lost in their own thoughts. Olivia tended the fire while Lyra communed silently with Ember. Their mental connection was obvious, even without words. The night grew colder. The fire burned low. Olivia wrapped herself in her jacket, trying to get comfortable on the hard cave floor. Her old life seemed like a distant memory now. The cabin. The photography. Wildlife that didn't include dragons. It felt like years had passed instead of days. She must have dozed off because she woke suddenly, to Ember's low growl. The fire had died to embers. The cave was dark except for the faint glow of Lyra's skin. Olivia reached for her flashlight, but Lyra caught her hand, shaking her head. "Listen," she whispered. Olivia strained her ears. The wind had died. Down. The mountain was silent. Too silent. No insects. No night birds, nothing. Then she heard it. Soft footsteps on rock, the click of metal, the whisper of fabric. Someone was outside the cave, moving stealthily, trying to approach undetected. The hunters had found them. Lyra moved silently to Ember, placing her hand on his head. The dragon remained still but alert. His golden eyes fixed on the cave entrance. Olivia could see his muscles tensing, ready to spring. "How did they find us?" Olivia mouthed the words rather than speaking. Lyra pointed to herself. "Energy grows," she explained silently. "Too strong. Hide harder." Olivia understood. As Lyra's powers increased, as Ember grew larger, their energy signature, or whatever the hunters were tracking, became more difficult to conceal. They were running out of time. A beam of light cut through the darkness, sweeping across the cave entrance. Voices murmured outside. Olivia caught fragments of conversation. Thermal signature confirmed strange radiation pattern. Subject located containment protocol Alpha. The hunters knew they were inside. They were preparing to move in. Olivia looked to Lyra for guidance. The alien woman closed her eyes briefly, then opened them with new determination. Her expression hardened. She pointed to the back of the cave where shadows concealed a narrow fissure in the rock exit. She mouthed. Olivia nodded, understanding. Lyra must have sensed another way out. She grabbed her backpack, moving quietly to the fissure. It was narrow, barely wide enough for a person to squeeze through, but it was their only chance. Lyra urged Ember toward the opening. The dragon seemed reluctant, clearly too large to fit. Lyra placed both hands on his head. Their foreheads touched in silent communion. Ember began to glow faintly. His outline blurred. His solid form seemed to shift, becoming less substantial. His wings folded impossibly tight against his body. He shrank not in actual size but in density. As Olivia watched in amazement, the massive dragon transformed into something more like a ghost of himself. Lyra gestured urgently. "Go," she mouthed. Olivia squeezed into the fissure. The rock scraped against her shoulders and back. She had to turn sideways to fit. The passage twisted upward through solid mountain climbing. In near darkness, she followed the route by touch alone. The sound of pursuit faded behind them. After what felt like hours, but was probably only minutes, the narrow passage widened. Olivia emerged onto a small ledge high on the mountainside. The night air felt fresh after the confines of the cave. Lyra followed close behind. Then came Ember, still in his strange, ghost-like state. They had escaped, but for how long? The mountain peak loomed above them, dark against the night sky. It looked impossibly far away. They would never reach it before dawn. Ember suddenly solidified, returning to his physical form. He shook himself like a dog after swimming. His scales rattled. The sound echoed across the mountain. Lyra winced, placing a calming hand on him. "Rest now," Olivia suggested. "We can't climb in the dark. We should find cover. Wait for dawn." Lyra shook her head, pointing up. "No time," she insisted. "Hunters everywhere." She looked at Ember, then at Olivia. "Must fly." Olivia stepped back. "Fly, you mean on Ember?" Lyra nodded. To peek, she confirmed, fast before light. Olivia stared at the dragon. His back was broad enough to ride now, but the idea of flying through the night sky on a dragon was terrifying. Yet the alternative, waiting for the hunters to find them again, was worse. Olivia gasped as the connection broke. The transfer of knowledge left her dizzy. Her mind struggled to process the flood of alien memories, the language of Lyra's people, the science behind the genetic template. Everything she needed to know now lived in her mind. Lyra stepped back, her face pale and drawn. The effort had weakened her, but determination burned in her strange eyes. She turned to Ember, placing both hands on his massive head. The dragon lowered himself, responding to her silent command. The hunters were halfway up the trail to the summit. Their lights bobbed in the darkness, their voices carried on the night wind, orders being shouted, teams coordinating, weapons being readied. Olivia now understood exactly what they faced. They were not just government agents, they served the Masters humans who had made a bargain with the alien invaders. Exchange Earth for power and technology. They believed they would be spared when the Masters came. But Olivia now knew the truth. The Masters spared no one. They consumed worlds completely, leaving nothing behind. Lyra spoke rapidly in her own language. The words now made sense to Olivia thanks to the knowledge transfer. I give you my strength, my heart, my life, she told Ember. Complete the transition, reach full power. Open the way. Ember growled softly in response. His scales began to glow brighter. Red shifted to gold, gold to white. Energy crackled around him. Lyra turned to Olivia. Her hands trembled as she removed a small crystal pendant. From around her neck, she pressed it into Olivia's palm. Sanctuary key, she explained. Guardian, now you. Olivia shook her head, not understanding. You're the Guardian? I'm just helping you escape. Lyra smiled sadly, looking more alien than ever in the strange. Light cannot escape, she said. Not both must stay one close doorway behind. The truth dawned on Olivia. Lyra was staying behind. She was sacrificing herself to ensure Ember reached Sanctuary. She was transferring her guardian status to Olivia. No, Olivia protested. We go together. We fight together. Lyra touched Olivia's face gently. My strength to Ember. She explained. Need all power, open way. Stay close, door. She looked at the approaching hunters, Master's servants. Never stop, never give up. She touched the crystal in Olivia's hand. You go warn Sanctuary, prepare. Olivia felt tears on her cheeks. The unfairness of it burned inside her. Lyra had lost her world, her people, everything. Now she would lose her life too. There must be another way, Olivia insisted. Lyra shook her head. No, this day comes, she said, always prepare. Her expression was peaceful, accepting long journey end here, new journey begin. She pointed to Olivia and Ember. You together now, bond formed when shared mind. Olivia felt it then, a subtle connection between herself and the dragon, a sense of his thoughts, his emotions. His determination matched Lyra's, his sadness at her choice, but also his understanding. This was the plan. This was always the plan. The hunters reached the lower edge of the summit plateau, their weapons raised. Their devices pointed at Ember's strange energy weapons that Olivia now recognized from Lyra's memories. Weapons designed to capture, not kill. They wanted Ember alive. They wanted the genetic template he carried. A voice called out through a loudspeaker, surrender the subject. No harm will come to you. Resistance is futile. Lyra ignored them, turning back to Ember. Her hands glowed as she pressed them to his chest. Her entire body began to shine with inner light. The energy flowed from her into the dragon. Ember grew, not in the gradual way he had been growing, but in a sudden, dramatic transformation. His body expanded, his wings stretched wider and wider, his neck elongated, his tail grew longer, his scales hardened into crystalline armor that reflected the light like millions of prisms. Within seconds, he was the size of a small aircraft. His wings spanned 50 feet or more. His head towered above them. His eyes now definitely contained galaxies, actual star systems swirling in golden pools. The hunters shouted in alarm. Some fired their weapons. The energy blasts bounced harmlessly off Ember's crystalline scales. Lyra continued to pour her life energy into Ember. Her body grew more translucent with each passing second. She was burning herself up from inside, feeding her essence into the dragon. The stone circle beneath them began to glow, all the ancient symbols lighting up in sequence. Patterns of energy flowed across the mountaintop. Energy that had been stored here for millennia by people who understood the power of earth energy that Lyra now channeled. Olivia clutched the crystal pendant, understanding its importance. She felt the connection to Ember grow stronger. The transfer of guardian status was almost complete. Above them, the aurora intensified. The colors shifted, swirling faster, forming a vortex. The master ships visible now, dark shapes against the colorful backdrop. They were coming through their own doorway opening. It was a race which portal would open first. Lyra began to sing, her voice ethereal haunting. The song of her people. A song of farewell. The last notes of a dying civilization. The stone circle pulsed in response. The energy patterns accelerated. Ember raised his massive head toward the sky. His jaws opened. A beam of pure white light shot upward, cutting through the aurora, pushing back against the master's portal. The hunters fired again. This time not at Ember but at Lyra. They understood what was happening. They knew she was the key to the power transfer. Olivia moved without thinking. She placed herself between Lyra and the hunters. The first energy blast hit her in the shoulder. Pain exploded through her body. But she remained standing. Agrar would protect Lyra until the end. Ember roared. The sound shook the mountain. The hunters fell back, covering their ears. The dragon's tail swept across the plateau, knocking several men off their feet. His wings created a barrier shielding Lyra and Olivia from further attacks. The beam from Ember's mouth widened. A hole appeared in the sky, not dark like the Master's portal, but bright, filled with golden light, a doorway to sanctuary. Lyra spoke, her voice now barely audible. Time, she whispered. Go. Now Ember lowered his massive head. His eyes met Olivia's. The connection between them solidified. She could feel his thoughts, his knowledge. The genetic template now accessible to her mind. She climbed onto his neck, settling between the crystalline ridges. The scales were warm beneath her. She looked down at Lyra, who was now almost transparent, her life force nearly gone. Thank you, Olivia said, tears streaming down her face. I won't forget, I promise. Lyra smiled one last time, her hand raised in farewell. Ember spread his enormous wings. The hunters fired desperately, trying to stop them. One man, different from the others, stepped forward, his eyes reflecting the strange light, his face twisted with rage. He was not fully human, Olivia realized. He was a hybrid, a servant of the Masters, given partial transformation as reward for his loyalty. Ember launched himself skyward. The force of his takeoff knocked the remaining hunters to the ground. The hybrid creature screamed in frustration, firing his weapon again and again. The blasts fell short as Ember climbed higher and higher toward the golden portal. Olivia looked back one last time. She saw Lyra now, a figure of pure light, standing in the center of the stone circle. Her arms raised, the energy of the ancient site flowing through her. Then Lyra changed, her form shifted, expanding. She became a pillar of blinding light that shot upward, connecting earth and sky. The power of it pushed back against the Master's portal, closing their doorway. Forcing their ships to retreat, Ember flew into the golden portal. The light enveloped them. The mountain, the hunters, earth itself fell away. They were between worlds. Time lost meaning. Space bent around them. Olivia clung to Ember's neck. The crystal pendant clutched in her hand, images flashed before her eyes. Past and future tangled together. She saw Earth from space. She saw the Master's ships retreating temporarily. She saw other worlds, some dying, some fighting, some already consumed. Then suddenly, they were through. A new sky surrounded them. 2 moons hung overhead, a landscape of purple forests and crystal towers spread out below. A sanctuary world, the last refuge of Lyra's people. Ember circled, slowly descending toward what looked like a temple. Similar stone circles marked the ground. Similar symbols glowed with welcome. Figures gathered below. Tall, slender beings with pointed ears and luminous skin. Lyra's people. Survivors waiting. As they landed, Olivia felt the weight of her new responsibility settle upon her. She carried Earth in her heart now. She carried Lyra's sacrifice. She carried the knowledge that might save both worlds. The elders of Sanctuary approached, their faces solemn, their eyes full of questions. "Where is Lyra?" one asked in their musical language. Olivia slid from Ember's back, her legs weak from the journey. The crystal pendant glowed in her hand, marking her as the new guardian. "She stayed behind," Olivia said in their language, the words coming naturally. To her now, she gave everything so we could come. She saved us all. The elders bowed their heads in mourning and respect. They had known. Perhaps they had always known that Lyra would not return. One stepped forward, older than the rest, his eyes ancient. "Wise, is it done?" he asked. "Is the template safe?" Ember lowered his massive head in confirmation. His task complete, the genetic knowledge preserved. The elder turned to Olivia. "You are bound to him now," he said. "You carry Lyra's essence. You are guardian." "Yes," Olivia acknowledged, "but not just of the template." She looked up at the alien sky, thinking of her home, of forests and mountains, of a small cabin where it all began. "I am guardian of 2 worlds now, and the masters still threaten both." The elder nodded, understanding. "We have prepared for this day," he said. "We have waited for the template, for the guardian, for the final battle." Olivia stood straighter, drawing strength from Ember's presence.